I'm Mindy Wyke, and this is Work in Progress. It's a podcast where we will be talking all about human development in tech. In the tech world, WIP stands for Work in Progress. It's often used for pull requests, merge requests, and sometimes even technical documentation that is still in draft mode. It's not quite finished yet. And let's be real, we are not quite finished. Humans are always in draft mode. This podcast is about the real, the messy, the human side of working in tech. I'll be talking with engineers, but also designers, product folks, customer support, coaches, and people from all over the tech world about what they are learning about, struggling with, building, and becoming. But ultimately, we are not here to showcase perfection. We're here to normalize growth, share stories, and remind each other that being a work in progress is exactly where we are supposed to be. So let's commit to curiosity and jump into it. Well, hello, and welcome back to the Work in Progress podcast, where we are talking about human development in tech. With me today, I have Keshia Coriolan, and she is an extraordinaire of all sorts of things, like salsa dancing, Latin dancing, traveling all over the place. What else? I think I saw that you were a personal trainer also, so you've done all sorts of things. But would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks, Mindy. And thank you, first of all, for having me here. It's absolutely amazing and an honor. I have to mention, I love the idea of work in progress because I feel like we're all work in progress. I know, at least for myself, that's how I feel about life. So, absolutely amazing to be here. I am a software engineer, technical support team lead, and formerly a personal trainer. That was mostly a passion. I am an amateur Latin dancer. I do dance a lot of salsa and bachata, and I am very overcommitted in everything in life. I've got so much going on, but yeah, really happy to be able to chat about that today.
Yes. Also, I missed something. You told me fairly recently that I forget how many languages, but it's like, is it 6? It's a lot.
Oh, we are at 4 and working on 5th. So English, French, Haitian Creole, Spanish, and I'm also learning Catalan.
Oh, yeah, that's right, Catalan. You were telling me about that. Would you like to quickly explain what Catalan is in case people don't know?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So a lot of people may not know it, but Catalan is a very well-known and spoken language and mainly comes from the region of Catalonia. So whenever I say Catalonia, think Barcelona. So Barcelona is actually the capital of Catalonia region in Spain. And there are a couple of other countries too that speak Catalan. One is in Africa, and one is basically at the border of Spain and France, which is a region in which like both countries had fought many, many years ago. And now it's an independent little country, super tiny and small, but they speak Catalan there. So for people who speak French or Spanish, it sounds very familiar. Or when you see it, you think, oh, that's not Spanish, but it's not French, but it's not Italian. What is it? But it looks like it's a mix of all of them. So for me, even though I'm totally beginner in Catalan, when I first saw it, I was like, French, Spanish, a little bit of Italian, a little bit of Portuguese, but I get it. And it's really easy for people who have any of those Latin language roots to be able to learn it.
That's awesome. I know I was like really impressed with you when you told me that. So I still only know English, but I have tried to learn Spanish a few times. I just haven't gotten very far. The other things distract me. So it's on my list though.
Nice.
Well, cool. I think I might be putting words into your mouth, but I think like part of your inspiration for learning all these languages is travel, or maybe it's the other way around. But I would love to kick it off by talking about your cool project that involves travel, if you'd like to share about that.
Yes, absolutely. So you're absolutely right. I don't know which one has influenced which, whether it's the travel that influenced the language or the language influenced the travel. I think it might be more the language that influenced the travel. For me, whenever I go somewhere, I feel like I will not be able to completely connect with the people of that region if I don't speak their language. And being somebody who is trilingual, literally, when I'm that person, if you give me a form and say, what is your mother tongue? It is the worst. If I have to fill it out, like radio button on the side, I'm like, I don't know which one to pick because I literally speak three, and even my mother cannot tell you which language came out of my mouth first. So it's really tricky. And as such, having been a trilingual baby, there are some jokes that I can make in English that won't work the same in French or in Creole, and vice versa. So I decided that I wanted to learn languages of the places that I wanted to visit the most and the countries that surround my home country. So I'm Canadian, born in Canada, and I was raised in the islands in Haiti. So this is a highland called actually in the past Hispaniola, who was split into two, Haiti and the Dominican Republic. So we're close to all those Hispanic speaking countries. And they're our neighbors and friends and family. Therefore, I wanted to learn Spanish, and I was watching telenovelas when I was young, and I still do, my little passion. And as a result, I wanted to really understand Spanish, and I did so well when I was a kid. You absorb so well the language, the words, and you understand. And that led to traveling. Exactly. So when you get it early, it sticks. And as a result, I wanted to travel and visit the world. Spain was always on my list of countries to visit. And last year, I not only visited, but I actually lived there for 6 months. So it was pretty awesome. And one thing that I do when I travel, I'm not sure if it's something that's very common for people to do, but one thing also about me, which I didn't mention, is I'm a bit of an amateur writer. First, I started when I was young. I like to journal. And one of the things that led to that is anytime I travel somewhere, let's say you're going to Barcelona and you're in Park Güell, which is absolutely a gorgeous park. At some point in my journey, I will sit down after I've taken a bunch of pictures, and I like to have my journal and just write some notes about how I'm feeling in this place, what it looks like. It's like I'm trying to capture forever in my writing the experience that I'm having. And while I was in Spain last year, one thing I realized was, well, I can't simultaneously take a picture and keep my notes in the same place. And earlier this year, I decided, well, I wanted to work on a cool project, something that I could start and actually finish because I wanted to do something that I cared about. So I didn't want to do another to-do list app or anything like that. And I thought, well, what is one problem that I could try to solve for myself? And I thought, oh, my experience in Spain. I had to take pictures on my iPhone, but then I couldn't write my thoughts and my journaling in my phone. At least that's not my preference. I'm more of a pen and paper. Or if I did on my iPhone, I couldn't have the picture right next to the text. So I thought, well, okay, I'm going to create an app. And that's how the Travel Diaries was born, which is basically a web app where you can have a journal and also simultaneously upload all the pictures that have to do with that experience. And you can embed that forever in one page. So at the end, you'll have like one page with your diary entry, and then you have the pictures of everything you wanted to capture next to it. And also be able to save some of the favorite places that you want to visit later. So there's a little bit of a wish list there. And so, yeah, so it's more of a passion project and something that I hope to finish this fall and use on my next trip and see how beneficial that actually is.
So I have two questions. The first one, you said you don't necessarily like to work on like an app. So do you envision this for yourself at least being like something where you write about it and then you kind of come back to it later to like enter that in? Or how do you envision using that?
I could write it down and then later just, snap a picture of it and then upload it. Or the challenge has been mostly in the past, like having like the phone and having a journal to carry around. But one thing I do a lot when I'm traveling is I often have my iPad. So it's much smaller. So I can take the pictures, but I could also enter right there the entry. I'm also considering a feature. I'm thinking this is probably going to be like a V2 version feature where it will just be also recording audio notes of me recording my experience right there. So, and then it transcribing it in the app. So we'll see. I think I'm going to create like different iterate at each iteration consider like different users' experience and preferences and incorporate that.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea because then like if you are sort of like looking around at what you're seeing and describing it, then it gives you another option.
Yeah.
So I like that. So then my second question is, do you know what your next trip is going to be already, or are you still deciding?
Oh no, my next trip is going to be Spain again. I've had the bug since I came back to actually be back. The day I came back to Montreal at the airport, I was like, wait a second, I made a mistake. Maybe I should just go right back in. So I said I would not wait a full year until I go back. So my plan actually is to go at the latest in December for 2 weeks and also get to see some friends over there. So yeah, I just have to book the ticket, but pretty much Spain again.
And you're not staying for 6 months this time, are you? Or are you?
Unfortunately not, unless something really exciting comes along that makes me stay for 6 months or even longer. Who knows? I'm open to all possibilities.
Well, excellent. So then I think I've been following a little bit of what's been happening. Life has been a little crazy, so I probably misread something, but I think you're doing Travel Diaries in TypeScript, or is it Rails, or is it both?
I am doing it actually in React and JavaScript.
Okay.
So actually at the back end, it's mostly Express, so a lot of JS there. The front end is mostly React. And I also have in the back end, I have some Postgres. So I have a database, which is all Postgres. And for the pictures, I'm still deciding because that's the next phase that I have to work on. But yeah, mostly JS and React for now.
TBD. But I have seen that you're learning those two languages, so would you like to share a little bit about one or both, either?
Yes. Let's go with Rails. I've been learning Rails, and this has been very different from the other object-oriented programming languages that I learned. I think the idea of Rails was supposed to make your life easier. But when you first approach it as a dev, at least that's been my experience, I was already familiar with the model view controller principles, but actually wondering, okay, what happens when I create this project? Okay, where does everything get saved? And it's kind of like you get dropped in the middle of a puzzle and you got to find your way around, like a little bit of a labyrinth. So it felt that way initially, especially because I started it right after I was in React. So it felt like very, very different. Um, but I'm learning it. And this fall, I decided to actually continue learning it, but this time with other people. So I started a mini Rails study group where people can actually share their journey. And we're going to kick off with the Odin project and add a few other things along the way, but really just to keep each other accountable. Um, Rails is basically used in multiple companies that I've always been interested in, including at my current company where I work at Thinkific. So that was the number one motivator to learn Rails, because I was really considering like the transitioning within the company. And that might still be an option, not really sure, but I decided to learn it for that reason. And the other reason is because, yes, GitHub still uses Rails, and that's like the dream job. So I thought, yeah, let's go and learn it. So very different from JS world that I've been in a lot. Very different from Java world where I started. That's actually how my programming journey started with Java, but very open to all the things to learn. I think the idea of make life easier for developers is kind of embedded in the Rails principle. I'm not 100% sure that it has achieved that, but we can always debate that with some folks, but I'm not 100% sure it has achieved that, at least when you're like a beginner. Maybe for folks who started it with Rails, I don't know how hard it's been for them to ramp up, but as somebody with a background that was more in Java and JavaScript, I found that it does take me a bit of time to get into Rails and understand all the moving pieces. But they have great documentation, but it's long.
I bet. Well, and that's always like there's always something to work for, right? Like it's never gonna no language is perfect and no language
Exactly.
probably ever will be perfect. So there's that. But yeah, at least they have good documentation even if it is long.
Yeah.
Um, how many people do you have in your community so far? Have you like gathered a group already? Or are you
So
looking for more
far,
people to join?
I'm totally looking for more people to join. So anybody can pretty hit me up on LinkedIn and I'll just add them as we're starting in September. So far, we're a group of 4 people who are interested and the levels vary. So we have one person who's never done anything in Rails, so fully beginner. You have me with some experience with Rails, um, and the other 2 also with some experience with Rails. So we're totally open to having more folks join the group and totally free. It's a Slack channel where we just keep each other accountable week after week and chat about the projects we're working on and how we're progressing, where we're stuck. And yeah, that really just a little accountability group.
That's excellent. I was going to ask where you're doing it, so it's a Slack organization. Cool.
Yes.
Um, I'm a part of far too many Slack organizations in it, but it is nice. Like just to have that ability to just easily chat. Especially because the free one's really not bad. You just don't get the history. So let's go back a little bit because you mentioned your current role, or I think you said technical support lead now, right? I think you did say that you
Yes.
got a excellent. So would you like to share a little bit about like the technical support engineer side of things and like even the lead side of things now? Because I think that was fairly recent, if I recall.
It's actually been 2 years. Time flies. It's already been 2 years. So, yeah, I've been after my first year working as a junior dev, I decided to go continue my studies and went to university. And one of the jobs that I found right after I couldn't find a dev role right away was actually with a company that reached out to me. And the role included a mix of customer facing and technical aspects. And it kept some of the things that I love most, or at least some of the languages that I love most in terms of tech, and including SQL. So it was a health tech company, and I decided to join them. So I had production access. I was able to do a ton of stuff, which was absolutely fun. Work with a small team of devs, about 6 folks, and a couple of other people in my team as well. So as a technical support engineer, the role involved talking to customers every single day. Some of it via phone, some of it via email, but you're constantly trying to solve problems. My goal was always to really try to understand what the customer was saying the issue was and be able to translate that in a way that helps our developers when they are either fixing bugs or creating new features. And along the way, I discovered that some issues in the past that were reported by our customers were never really fully grasped. And so I started this journey of, okay, I get to really chat with the customer, look at what they're talking about, a lot of screen sharing, a lot of debugging, a lot of monitoring at least services. And I got my first exposure to on-call rotations as well, in incidents in the middle of the night and in the middle of the day. And so that brings a lot of rush and adrenaline, and I love it. Um, Even though the first time it happened, of course, it scared me out of my mind. But, internally, you had to remain calm. But over time, really, it was just a great experience as a technical and support engineer to be able to better understand customers and connect with them and really understand the reason why like I exist. I exist to solve their problems, to understand what they're trying to achieve with our product, to understand how the limitations of our products are a huge blocker for their business as well, and be able to communicate that to all the teams that are involved behind the scene, whether product, engineering, and also create better documentation. Because documentation is sometimes something that's lacking, and whether internal or for our customers. And so I got to do a ton of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I started my tech journey in support more from like support, less technical support. I took
Okay.
on the technical side of things, but I mean, I would argue that like it almost gives you not just that extra level of empathy, but also like the ability to translate what the actual problem is. And like I used to enjoy trying to be like, I'm pretty sure it's like in this is roughly what's happening. Like, because I didn't have
Mhm.
access to the code base when I was in support. Um, I always asked for it, but I didn't get it. Um, but like it really helps you understand what's happening and then, like I said, be able to translate that to another engineer or another person on the technical side of things. So it gives you a really important skill that I don't think everyone has. Um,
Absolutely. I think it is so crucial. And I think that as a technical support engineer, if we have really good communication skills, we have superpowers. There are things that as a developer, even in my previous role as a developer at Best Logic, that I couldn't quite understand why it was a pain point for our customers until I later got into those technical support engineer role where I got closer to the customer. And to illustrate that, when I was working at Best Logic, the customer, I was given something to work on. The customer, they had a small coffee shop business and they wanted a website and they were selling a bunch of arts and craft on their website. And they also had an admin side to the website and a billing section. So I was tasked with doing something and I did it and I was so excited. And this was like a mom pop shop kind of business and we were a startup. So I actually got to go to the store and be there with the customer and show them what I built. And I was like, hey, so this is what I did for you, blah, blah, blah. And I was so excited. And the customer's reaction, oh, okay, cool. Now that sank in so badly. I was like, okay, what did I miss here? I totally missed the mark. And I realized when talking to them that number one, we hadn't understood the scope of what they were trying to do. And we didn't fully understand the problem that they wanted us to solve. So I sat there with the customer and he explained what he was looking for. And I was like, oh, okay. And internally, I was like, yeah, this was totally not what you wanted. I get it now.
and
And
that's why you
later
got that.
on, exactly. But I was so super proud of the work I had done. But it really tells you how if we are too far removed from the customer, how we don't understand some of their concerns. And to your point, also, when we're as a technical support engineer, when you get to dig into things, you kind of already have a sixth sense of, oh, the problem is over here or over there, or at least here's where I think things are going wrong. Having access to the code base is definitely a huge help. I also can relate to that. I always wanted, sometimes I don't get it, but I loved working at the health tech company because I had access to everything, which was fantastic. And I had a lot of powers to the point that it could be a little dangerous, but it was super helpful. And that experience was a great experience because not only was I close to the customer, but I also got to fix bugs. I got to create stuff for them from scratch. And sometimes our dev team just didn't have the space within a sprint to do certain things for them. So this is where I got thinking, well, what if I could just do most of the work and somebody can just review my work and then give it a check and we're good to go. And we did that. And as a result, I started forming really close relationship with our devs. And for one account specifically that we wanted to save, I recall the customer, we fixed a bug. Customer's like, no, it's not fixed, not at all. And our devs are just getting so frustrated and like, what else does this customer want? And even our director called me directly. He's like, what did you say to her? What was she saying? Can you explain? And in the end, the customer walked me through everything. I recorded everything and I was like, yeah, okay. Then I went back to the initial JIRA we created and I realized we hadn't understood again what they were trying to solve for. And therefore we were solving for the wrong problem, which is not great because that's a lot of human resources used, right? During a sprint to be able to fix something or build something. But if you're not solving for the right problem, then you're not really helping the customer the way that they want and need to be helped. So I find that being a technical support engineer role has given me this really unique perspective now as a dev when I approach solving some of their problems. Um, to go back to your question as a lead, the difference here for me has been that as a technical support lead, I've spent a little less time in the day to day in the grunt work and more time actually managing people, which is not exactly um, something that I love to do. I'll be honest. I think that it's so natural for a lot of companies to think some of their best performers are going to turn into the lead and go down the managerial path. But I think that that's not really always the best thing. So what I've always tried to do, even as a lead today, I actually try to pull up tickets and talk to the customers and resolve their issues. If my team has something that they're working on, and I think, okay, I could make life so much better if I write a script for this, if I use our API and solve this. And that's what I've been doing a lot, even as a lead, but it involves a lot more one-on-ones with people, basically a manager role. And if I wasn't so obstinated and so obsessed with still doing the heavy load of the work and the investigation and digging into code and debugging and finding out what bug caused this, I think that if it was only the managerial side, like it would not be the kind of role that I wanted out of my career. But it can be really rewarding too. But you manage a lot of escalation, a lot of customer frustration, but also coaching people in how to become themselves better technical support engineer and how to troubleshoot better and how to not be afraid of customers. Because I find that that's one thing with team members is when customers get frustrated, um, they're fearful of getting on calls. And I'm like, no, this is a human being. They just want to see another human being and connect with that person. And you know what? By email, they might be really angry, but then in person, they'll be like the chillest, coolest people, and they just really want to be heard. And just like us, they're work in progress, and they just want to make sure that somebody at the company has their back, really.
Yeah, you're honestly exactly right. So I was a manager for a while in a couple of different roles. And I think two things. Number one, it is definitely hard to give up the like, I don't know, it kind of seems like you maybe like me enjoyed the problem solving and the puzzle figuring out. And it was really hard to give that up. So I could definitely relate to that. But then also, like the talking with customers thing, it can be a little scary. Like sometimes when I would have to do the escalations, like I would have a little heart flutter. But exactly to your point, like I remembered the times when it was like, if it was me being upset at like some customer service person, and I'm like, you just need to solve my problem. Or just thinking about the people who sound really mean on email. But when you talk to them, they're really just looking for someone to listen. Exactly. And just jumping into it, even if you're afraid, has been huge. Just being a person, like, okay, I have fear, acknowledge that. Because it is a little scary. You know, you're going to go talk to somebody who's a little upset and you don't know how upset they're going to be. So it is valid, but like acknowledge it and then just sort of jump in is the way that I used to kind of approach that. I don't know if that's how you do it, but you just never know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally. That's exactly it. Like, even if they're frustrated, I always think the same thing as you. What if it were me? I'm frustrated and I just want to know that somebody is actually behind that email, who cares? And they're not just copy pasting canned responses because we know how those can go, but
Yeah, I was
they're
going to say,
doing more
especially
than that.
now.
Exactly. And now also with the AI piece coming into play, I think some customers are just fearful when we integrate more AI, at least on the customer serving side. And they just need to know that there is a human being who's going to listen. So I always approach those calls by jumping in and first letting them know, like, hey, this is me, I'm Keshia. And honestly, I'm just here to help you. So whatever it is that you need solving, like, know that I'm in your corner. Like, I'm the fan in the stand right there and cheering you on for your business. And a lot of time, the customers that I help today, some of them are small businesses. They're just trying to build something for themselves and for their families. And so I just keep thinking about that because I think we're all in that boat of wanting to secure a future for our families. So just let them know, hey, I'm in your corner here. And if I can't solve the very problem for which we're on the call, I always make it a point to ask them, is there anything that's a pain point for you? Is there anything you've tried to accomplish that you haven't been able to accomplish? And to my surprise, more than once or twice, the customer will come up with a list. And I'm like, oh, well, that's easy. Here's how we could do that. And yeah, and I have a solution for you. And then they're like, I can't believe this. And I even had like support tickets with, as technical support engineer, my current role, we're not the first front line. So that first front line may not have necessarily fully understood what the customer was looking for. They're not always very clear, let's be honest. But as a result, they're on the call with me, and then we solve like 3 or 4 different issues. And then even if I didn't solve the very problem for which they came on the call,
Mm-hmm.
they walk away thinking, okay, she cares. And I always let them know, hey, I'm going to follow up. If it's a bug related, I can't affect that because I'm not the dev who's going to fix it. I can at least gather as much context as I can to make sure that the team has all the information that they should have in order to make the best decision, or at least to make an informed decision, even if that's we won't fix. And so, yeah, I think just reminding ourselves that the human equation is there on the customer side just as on our side, and just being willing to help, really, that's all they're looking for, people to listen, to help, and help solve their problems.
Yeah, I love that actually. There's two things I'm picking out of that. Number one, like finding that common ground early, like coming in being like, I am totally on your side, which I think helps a lot because I feel like sometimes people think that you're just there to like, you're here to tell me no, or like, you're here to like just rain on my day. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you start out of the gate with like, I am here for you, let's figure this out. I think that that helps a lot with like disarming them a little bit in a good way.
Yeah.
And then I'm also hearing like coming out with a win. So even if you can't solve something right here, right now, you're on the call with them. And especially if you are typically taking a lot of the escalated customers,
Yeah.
you have the
Sure.
opportunity to like, help them walk away with something happier than just, she's gonna maybe follow up in a week, or whatever it is. Like leaving with a win is huge. So good job on you.
Yeah. Thank you. We try. We
Um,
aim to please.
yeah, exactly. I guess let's see, there's two other things I want to talk about. The first is that you mentioned earlier that you are considering transitioning back into like a full engineering role. What does that look like for you? I know that you're working on your Travel Diaries project, but like, how else are you approaching that?
Yeah, so I made the decision a little over 2 years ago, actually, over to come back to a software engineer role. And a big part of that also had to do with my transitioning into the lead role. I think that was like the cherry on the sundae to make me realize, like, this isn't for me. I really need to solve problems. I like to code. I like to build. I like the puzzle. It's a little sadistic, but if I have to pull my hair, I actually like that part. I don't understand, or I fixed my code after so many things and I don't understand what I did to fix it, but it's fixed. I still like all of that. It works, but you're always like a little skeptical, but why does it work? And so all these things, and just being able to build product and really build solution that really help customers in the long term, are the things I'm passionate about. And so I decided, like, for sure, I'm doing that. And so in the last 2 years, I spent a ton of time ramping up. Even if we take, for example, JavaScript as an example, when I was coming up as a dev, it was circa 2008, 2009. So this was pre ES6. I was a little antique. And so there are some things I had to ramp up about. And so I did that and spent a lot of time just making sure my skills are up to date and working on projects and learning through projects. Even one of the ones that I did was one of the coding challenges from
Coding with Callie.
I did with Coding with Callie, yes. I was thinking specifically yes. So one of the things that I also did is I worked on some coding challenges by John Cricket. One of them was actually the Spotify playlist, which was mainly front end and also the use of API. And I'm a full stack engineer, but I do have a little tendency to lean towards back end more than front end.
Same.
If you don't necessarily always want to see the front end stuff I built. They're functional. They're not the nicest, but they work. And so that was the most front end ish that I did out of his coding challenges. But I learned by doing. And so I've been doing a lot of learning by doing and seizing every opportunity at work that I can possibly find to use those skills. And sometimes that means, simply if there's a functionality that we don't have within our app, sometimes it means creating a script to do that using our API. And so I've been solving for problems like these. And yeah, so definitely looking forward to that next role. And I've been actively seeking, whether internally or externally. I'm just open to any and all possibilities at this point. And yeah, I'm really excited for that next chapter because the bug's been bugging for quite some time, and it's time. It's
Yeah, and you've been
overdue.
working hard. I mean, because you're sharing a lot of what you're doing in public, which is awesome. So, if you're curious about what Keisha's doing, check it out on LinkedIn. But yeah, you've been sharing for a while, so it's really, I am sure that you will find something because you have such a broad set of skills, both like from a coding perspective, like starting out with Java and then like getting up to speed on TypeScript and JavaScript, but then also like we were talking about earlier, the communication piece from your stint as a technical support engineer is huge. I keep hearing about how it's lacking, it's lacking, it's lacking. So you do have a huge skill set, and you've been engineering this whole time. Like even if you haven't always been working in the code base, that's just me validating you, I guess. But
Oh,
like
thank you.
from my perspective, like you've been engineering this whole time. You're still solving problems. You're still listening to understand what's actually going on so that you can solve the right problem because that's half the battle. Um, Otherwise, you're wasting time, like you said. Um, well, cool. I think the last thing I want to talk about, which we probably should have talked about first because it's extremely important, but I would love to hear about your perspective in tech as a minority. I know we kind of talked a little bit about that earlier, like where you came from originally. But I'd love to hear a little bit about how your experience has been, both as a woman in tech and like how you're navigating that.
Yeah, so I think the first thing you can say is I if there's one thing I want like women to take away out of that, first being a woman, second being a woman in minority, um, to not be afraid of this field and to not let the intimidation of the majority, which right now is male and has always been majority male. But we've done so much progress. When I first came into tech, if we just take, for example, my experience in my junior college, I was doing a 3-year technical program as computer science, and I was one of 3 women out of a classroom with 47 other guys.
Crazy.
That's like, I was looking at the amphitheater when I walked in and I was like, it's all guys. And I was like, where is like, I know I'm not going to find, like, I was not illusioned or anything. I knew I wasn't going to find a ton of women in this field. But to know that I was the third one who walked in was really intimidating. And at the time, it was, yeah, you had a lot of stereotypes. The guys who were in the classroom were the guys who were playing video games all day long or who had already been coding since they were 10 or something. And so I was coming in fresh, no coding skills whatsoever before coming into that program. So you can imagine when I print that first Hello World in Java, I was really excited about it. But it was not no major thing for most of the folks in the room, but I was super excited about it. And when we graduated, by the end of the 3 years, we 2 of us graduated, and the third person, she did not. She got out of the program very early. So I think the first thing for women in general, and I think we have that as women, is that we are built to be resilient. And I think in tech, we have to be resilient. You have to have that grit. You have to tell yourself it's okay not to know everything, and it's okay to learn along the way. And you're not expected to be superwoman here. I think a lot, at least my generation, we grew up thinking we can do so many things. We should be able to do all the things, but we're not meant to be superwoman. Yes, I think kind of we're the same age range, so we have that mentality. But honestly, when you come into tech, I think it's important, especially as women or women of minority, to remain humble, but to also know that you have a place here. Just because there isn't representation in the room doesn't mean that you don't belong. In my case, I was also the only women of a minority group in that classroom.
Uh,
And so I wasn't finding myself. And at the time, there weren't a ton of role models of women of a minority like me who were showing up in all the places in social media talking about being women who were software engineers. So I didn't have um, any reference point when I came into this field. The only reference point I had came from a TV show that was called 24, where Chloe O'Brien was this badass analyst, hacker. And I was like, I want to be the next Chloe O'Brien. I am not the next Chloe O'Brien, but I thought I could probably do this. And that also encouraged me to continue into tech. But I think there's still a place for us here. I think now, we have a duty as women who have made it into tech, at least that's my perspective, to encourage the younger generation. It does come with its challenges. Um, we are always going to have folks who think that we don't necessarily belong here, or, it's a little challenging. If I have to hire between a man and a woman, let's be honest, there's going to be the first thing. If you're a woman, you show up, they think, well, is she married? Is she going on maternity leave? Like, all these questions are still very much around. Um, and that's just being a woman. But if you're a woman of color, it does come with its own whole other baggage and set of baggages that come along the way. And so it hasn't been easy navigating tech. You constantly feel like you have to prove yourself. So that can often lead many women and women of color in tech tend to burn out as well, which I think hasn't been very helpful to keep us. So first of all, the number in the tech world is small compared to the overall number of people in tech. But then by the age of 38, I believe, I was at Elevate Conference, and one of the CEOs, she was a woman, and she was giving the stat that by 38, most women actually get out of tech, which is not a great thing at all, because we should be able to continue on if we want to. And so I think some of the challenges that we see in tech for women need to be addressed. As a woman of minority, I know I've faced more than my shares of discrimination as well, second guessing my ability to do my job, to be a software engineer as a result of, can you really do this? If a lot of time people ask, where are you from? Oh, well, okay, if your family, okay, you're Canadian, but where are you really from? And then when you go into that storytelling, okay, I'm from Haiti. Okay, but you come from a country that's not necessarily developed, so you can't possibly have the skills that we're looking for, which is absolutely not true, right? There are some amazing engineers that are coming from out of Africa, out of Southeast Asia, out of the Caribbean and Latin America. And so there are stereotypes, and we've been pictured and boxed into specific scenarios. And one of those scenarios has never involved us being software engineers, us being in the tech world. And so we now we're a generation of women, as women in minority, who have to break glass. We have to break through that ceiling. And so it does come with some challenges. But I also think that if each of us are able to break glass just a little bit, then that's going to create role models for the younger generation that's coming up. And that's my goal in the next year as well. I actually want to be joining an organization that is teaching younger girls, probably already before their teens, because I think then the work needs to start so much earlier than when they hit the end of high school. At the end of high school, it's too late. If they didn't feel like they could be technical enough, they're not going to start thinking about a technical program for university necessarily. So I think the work needs to happen a lot earlier. And I think there needs to be more women of minority within the tech world to inspire others to join. And then there's still a lot of work to do for us to feel like this is the place where we can remain and we can grow in our career.
You've given me chills this whole stint that you've been talking about this. And I think you're absolutely right because I'm so glad that you saw 24 and that you were excited about becoming um, some kind of technical person. Because I don't feel like I ever got that. Not that I am not a person of color, but I do feel like as a woman in particular, I grew up in a pretty rural area and I never once considered it until I was
Mm,
almost in my 30s. I used to like mess with computers all the time. I don't know why. I think in large part it's because there weren't role models. There wasn't someone
mm.
telling me that I could do this. So I think that that's extremely powerful, and I'm really looking forward to see what you do with that. If there's a way I can help, let me know. Or I know you said in the next year or so, but if you want to share that out today, I don't know. If do you already have an organization picked out, I guess is kind of what I'm asking.
I don't. I'm still shopping around. And so if there's anybody who ends up watching this video and this podcast and thinks, hey, I think this would be pretty cool for you, please feel free to reach out. But yeah, I'm still shopping around. I've seen a few. There are a couple right here in Montreal too. There was one I was eyeing and then I realized it wasn't necessarily the best because it wasn't very open and encouraging. It was very for a specific group of young girls, but who had means. But the reality is, a lot of people from minority groups don't necessarily have the financial means to buy a computer, or at least when we were growing up, my family, there was one computer, and I grew up in the dial up time. So
Yep,
basically, if my dad was on the computer, he picked up the line and, oh, and you
it
hear
cuts
that
out.
tone. Yeah, it cuts out. You hear the tone. I actually miss that tone, but
I do too
um,
sometimes. Sometimes.
sometimes, yeah. But it was pretty cool. But you know what? I'm grateful that when I was growing up, honestly, we had just one computer and I wasn't allowed to spend a ton of time on it because they were afraid that I would break something. And it was expensive, right? Computers were expensive. And I certainly didn't have the luxury to take apart a whole computer. No, my dad would have he would have cut me. But eventually, I remember one of our computers broke. And so they were like, yeah, we're going to get rid of it. So I got to actually open it and see the inside and see how everything worked. Remember, it's still in the time of the floppy disk. So you get to see everything. You look at the motherboard. So it was pretty cool. But at the time, I don't know why my mother saw something, some light of she seems interested in this. I don't know why, but she saw a little spark enough so that, and she combined that because I always had a love for learning anything. I love history. I like learning about stars and astrology, astronomy in general. And so she found those CDs. Yeah, we're still CDs that you could put in the computer and I forgot the name, but it was pretty cool. You learned about a variety of topics, and one of them was also technology. So I had to bargain with dad to get an hour of the
Yeah, give me some
computer.
time to learn.
Yeah, just an hour of computer to be able to actually use those CDs and learn a bit more. But from there, I learned to do a lot of things. And then, in my teens growing up, um, not super proud of that today, but yeah, we used to rip music. I learned to do that too. This was part of the learning process as well. So I think that when there's a spark, whether there are or there aren't resources, I think right now, like I would prefer to participate in an organization that is actively looking to support that spark in young girls in communities that don't necessarily have a lot of means and certainly not a lot of opportunities. So it might be a community, a physical community center. It might be something over the web, but yeah, definitely want to help cater to that little spark because somebody saw it in me and that's how I'm here today. And I love to pass that on to the next generation.
I love that, Keisha. Thank you. That made my soul feel good. Well, yeah, I'm excited to see what you do, and if there's any way I can help, please let me know. But I guess that's a great way to sort of taper off here. So before we leave, I like to ask my guests if people remember nothing else from this conversation, if there's one thing you want them to walk away with, what might that be?
You belong here. That's really all I'll say. You belong here. I think for me, it's the message that I tell myself every day. And I came very close to never coming back as a dev. And it's because for the longest time, I didn't have the support that I needed to grow as a dev. And I realized sometimes you have to create that for yourself as well. You might not necessarily find it, but you do belong here, no matter how challenging it is. If you had to redo your comp sci class 4 times, it's okay. You still belong here. It happened to me too. You might still have challenges along the way, but it doesn't mean you're not capable. There will be challenges. This is a tough field. Being a software engineer is tough. It is not an easy job, and we're not solving for small problems. We're solving for big problems, and we're solving for the future as well, and partly for the future of this planet. So just know that there is a space here for every single person here. There's room. It's a table, and there's room at the table. And if you don't see a seat at the table, well, somebody's going to pull up a chair and just fit there. But you
I
do
was gonna
belong
say
here.
there's
And
always a chair
so,
you can pull up.
yeah, there's a chair you can pull up and just squeeze in between two folks if you need to. But I think we belong here. And especially as women, we belong here, and to remember that. And so when the going gets tough, just remember you belong here. And so keep persevering along the way.
Thank you, Keshia. That is the best message. Obviously I'm biased. I'm a woman. But anyway, thank you so much for coming and joining me and sharing your story. I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much. It was so lovely to chat about this and all things tech, women, and yeah, definitely need to continue catching up. And thanks for everybody who's listening.
That's it for this commit of the Work in Progress podcast. If you liked it, please hit follow, leave a review, or share it with another human who's figuring things out too. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and keep showing up, even if it's still a draft. Until next time, keep iterating.